Good morning. Still morning for a few minutes. How are
Good
you?
morning. Good
How,
morning, Rochelle. Good to see you.
you too, Mayor Schewel. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's not an easy time, as we all know. It's really difficult.
It really is. It's a very challenging time. Everything you see is just gone awry. Going back to school, everything, every place that we knew normal is no longer normal. And I always wonder, is this going to be our new normal going forward? Is this what we're looking at where we are in terms of people losing their jobs, places going out of business, not being able to go into places in large numbers? Is this going to become our new normal? Because I'm sure, as you remember, after September 11th in 2001, we got a new normal and we have not gone back to where we were before that. So do you think this will become, some form of this will become our new normal?
Well, I think there's certain aspects of it that are. I mean, I'm very hopeful because the scientists are hopeful that sometime in the spring we may have significant availability of a vaccine that's been truly tested and is safe and effective. Maybe even more than one vaccine. So I'm optimistic about that because I believe the scientists who are working on it and feel confident that will happen.
Mhm.
And right now there are these phase 3 trials that they're doing on up to 30,000 people. And so I think that when that happens, we will get back to closer to a lot of the things that we've always done. We'll be able to meet in person, we'll be able to have dinner in person and so forth, when there's wide uptake of the vaccine.
Yeah.
It worries me that there's some people who will refuse, and that will endanger vulnerable people. So I think that's a big challenge. And then regardless, I agree with you. I think a lot of things are going to stay, there'll be a lot of things that'll change forever. I think that, or I don't know about forever, but at least during our lifetimes, that, the distance work, the distance learning, all those things, there are a lot of positives to it. I don't like staying at home all day and working, really hard on Zoom calls all day, which is what I do, what you do. But I do think some of that will persist and will be good. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the future will bring.
May I ask you to say a little bit about wearing masks? Because there's, a lot of noise and pushback from people who feel like you're impinging on their human rights to make them wear a mask. Why is it logical to wear a mask? What's the pros and cons of wearing a mask other than you have something covering your face? But what are your thoughts about masks?
Well, in Durham, we were one of the first cities to have a mask requirement, and we put our mask requirement in on March 28th. And the state followed 2 months later. Most of the nation now has a mask requirement. And that's because they've been found to be effective. I think at the beginning we heard two things. One is don't get masks because we have a small supply of them and the medical folks need them.
Mm-hmm.
And also there was some feeling that there was some uncertainty about the level of protection that they provided. But I think that has now been, all the science now points towards the effectiveness of masks, both for protecting you, if you wear a mask, and protecting the people that you're with. So wearing a mask is not just self-protective, but it's an act of real kindness towards others. And there are various, there have been a lot of good studies now of the various effectiveness of the various kinds of masks. Almost all of them, any kind of face covering that you wear is helpful. Some are better than others. The N95s are the best, but the normal cloth mask or the surgical mask that you wear can really reduce your risk by 95%. And so I think we know a lot about that now, and it's very even places that I used to go into where people weren't wearing masks, now everybody's masked up, and so I think that's a good sign.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you very much for that. So the reason for our chat today is to talk a little bit about this upcoming election. And there is a lot of misinformation about what will and what will not happen. I would just like to ask you to explain to us in North Carolina, and if it's only specific to Durham, that we find too, but in North Carolina, mail-in ballots going to polling places, what are the recommendations, or what are the things that concern you, and what you want us to do as a community?
So I think that there are 3 ways to vote. There's voting on election day, there's voting early in person, and then there's mail-in balloting. And my recommendation, I'll tell you, I have an order that I'm recommending. The first is, if you are a person that does not have significant health conditions, my recommendation is in-person early voting. Early voting. It's safer than going to the grocery store. Our Board of Elections has done a great job to create safe environments, both for the people that work and for the people that vote. You'll need to wear face masks. That can't be legally required, but it's strongly recommended that you wear a face mask, of course. There'll be plexiglass shields there for the workers. And a lot of the volunteers now, it's interesting because a lot of the people who've been working our polling places, Rochelle, that were my age, I'm 69, that was the average age, was retired people, 70-year-old people. A lot of them, of course, now may have an underlying health condition or just are at risk. So they've had a whole new cadre of volunteers, mostly younger volunteers, who've stepped up. And in Durham, we've had so many people volunteer to make the process work, which is fantastic. So we have the people to be able to be at the polling places to do the work. And in early voting, you'll be able to get in and get out. Also, my understanding is there will be an app that you can find out what's happening at your early voting site. If it's crowded, you can wait and go another time. I can make that information more available to you.
Please.
If you are not comfortable early voting, however, and then absentee balloting or mail-in balloting is a very strong alternative as well. You just need to go ahead and do it. That mail-in balloting is starting now. And we don't want people to wait until the very last minute when they mail their ballot in, and then it's not counted until after Election Day. It'll still be counted I believe it has to arrive by November the 6th, but we don't want that. We want all the ballots counted on November 3rd, or as many as possible, and then the ones that straggle in will be counted later. The Durham Board of Elections is very good. They have a great director, Derek Bowens, and they're very effective, and I know they're going to do a great job. If you cast a vote early, whether it be an absentee ballot or early voting, you will be in-person voting. You will be counted on November the 3rd. It's only those that come in after that will be counted later. So, the best thing, one of the reasons to vote early is that in-person voting, 99% of the ballots are counted. Count. When you vote by mail, there's a much higher percentage people make mistakes. They don't fill it out right. They put their name on the wrong line, all kinds of things. And in some jurisdictions, as low as 85% of the ballots actually get counted. Wow. So for people to get their vote, make sure your vote counts. The best thing to do is go vote early in person.
Okay.
If you don't feel safe, though, voting by mail is a great alternative.
Okay. So
go ahead.
No, I was going to tell you, the neighborhood I live in is not far from downtown, nor from Duke or anything else. And we got this thing from the Center for Voter Information. It says it's coming from Raleigh, from Wilmington Street. Vote at home ballot request form, do not discard. Is this legitimate, or is this something else?
I don't know the answer to that. I got one as well. I'm not saying it's not legitimate, Rochelle. I just don't know.
What do you recommend we do when we get these? What should we do?
I think that if you want to vote by mail, requesting an early ballot, requesting a ballot either through that or another way is really good. So, some of the advice that I have is, I think the best website, I really like a website called youcanvote.org.
Okay.
And if you go to youcanvote.org, you can see, for example, they have a vote by mail, all really good instructions. And this is a very nonpartisan, trustworthy site that you can learn about how to vote. There's a link there to the North Carolina absentee ballot request form, and it's easy to get. There's a link to download that ballot request form, and tells you how to submit it to the County Board of Elections. Ideally, they want people to send in their ballot before October the 27th by 5 p.m. And so that's really important. And of course, we really want people to send it in a lot earlier than that.
Excellent. When does early voting start?
Let me get that date.
Okay.
I don't want to make a mistake. Hang on one second, and I will tell you. Let me just find the hang on. We'll talk about something else while I'm looking that up.
Okay.
The thing that I want to emphasize again is that if you do have an absentee ballot, you really need to be careful in filling it out.
Okay.
It's easy to make a mistake, and so I just want to urge people to really pay attention. You can get, but if you go to the youcanvote.org website, you can get a voting educator, somebody who can call you
Okay.
and help talk you through it. So you can do it from home. There won't be any, there won't be any danger of COVID exposure.
Yeah.
In-person voting in North Carolina begins Thursday, October 15th.
That's early voting.
Early voting in person begins Thursday, October 15th, and it ends Saturday, October 31st.
Ends 10/31.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put all this in our chat when I post it so people can have all this information, including the You Can Vote site.
Great.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So previously during elections, people in my neighborhood and other people go ride share. They go pick someone up and take them to the polls or something like that. Is there any recommendation or any thoughts about how that should be done for people who don't have transportation or people who are, don't drive or whatever the case may be?
Well, that's a really important question. So I think what we want as much as we can is for people that can't get to the polls at all to be able to vote by mail.
Okay.
There will be in-person services for people to get to the polls, but I know a lot of the people that can't drive might, for health reasons, might worry about someone picking them up and exposure. But there will be groups, the campaigns and so forth that will still be providing rides.
Okay.
It just is, hopefully, because I think there'll be a lot of people who are concerned for their health in that regard.
That might be a bit challenging to figure that out. So
yeah, and so I think that my advice is for people to can't get out is to use the vote by mail.
Okay. So let me ask you this question, and this is a conversation we hear on CNN, on every news media there is about influences from outside of the United States and whether the voting apparatus, in other words, how you vote, the machine, how it's counted and all of that, that is subjective to hacking or interference. Is that a real fact, or is that's what's the issue there? Is it possible that there's outside influence that could affect people's votes?
I think the answer to that is nationally, it's certainly possible that there are a lot of computer voting. There are a lot of systems around, so every state, every locality, lots of different localities have all different voting systems. It's done it's not a national standard.
Right.
So that means that there's some which are much more susceptible than others to computer hacking. There's no question, we know that Durham was one of the counties that the Russians attempted to hack in 2016 election.
Yeah.
They did not, not change any vote totals or anything. But that hacking will take place. I mean, I just think not even related to voting, the number of people trying to hack Durham city government, Rochelle, and you think about the people trying to hack into the Duke personnel system daily. It's just computer bots. They're programmed to just hit thousands of times to see where they can enter. So that will be happening. We do have in Durham a paper trail with our ballots. As you know, when you go and you vote, you put a piece of paper into this machine. That is much more secure than a computer-only system. Absolutely. So even if our system got hacked, we still have the paper trail for every ballot, and that's a security. That's a security guarantee, which is great.
So what I think I'm hearing you saying is the thing that's most susceptible to this intrusion is voting by mail. Going through the system electronically.
Well, if you vote by mail, you're going to still send in an actual ballot, and it's going to have a paper trail. I think in Durham, all ballots will have a paper trail. I do think, there are other dangers. We hear about the situation with the U.S. Postal Service, where there have been cuts in the Postal Service, postal boxes removed, various places, sorting machines no longer in service. I'm not an expert on that, but I know that's a concern. So that's one of the other reasons that it's important for people to go ahead. And if you are voting by mail, to go ahead and
vote as early as possible.
Vote as early as you can, and to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. So to call the number for the voter education to help you complete your ballot if you're not comfortable completing your ballot.
Yeah, and by October 27th is when the County Board of Elections must receive your completed and signed absentee request form. And then once that happens, you can go ahead and send your ballot in. But it's really important to do it way before then.
Okay. So for our higher education students in college who are either in their college town or whether they've stayed home. So for example, we're very fortunate. Our son, comes home when he was going to school, comes home every other weekend and came home to vote. But for students that are, say, in Durham, but they're registered voting places in California or somewhere else, is there a process where they can vote, or do they literally have to go home to vote? Or can this mail-in balloting help them?
Yes, they can vote by mail.
They can vote by mail.
They can vote by mail.
Excellent. Very, very
and
good.
they should definitely do that. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And early as possible.
Yeah. I remember when I was in college, I remember voting by mail absentee way back then. You can still do that. And we need all of our students to be voting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so then,
super important.
Yeah. So my last question for you, this is so if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and make something in our world better, what would be the thing that you would spend most of your energies and efforts on? So I know as mayor, you've got a lot on your plate. You're expected to do a lot of things. You keep our city running and keep city government functioning for all of us. But what's the magic bullet? What's the one thing that you think we as citizens should be helping with? And as you and your role, what is the thing you want us to come together with to make us a better city and a brighter city?
Well, I think it's something you and I have talked about before, but I think that, and this election has a lot to do with this, what I'm about to say. We have to create a more racially just society. We know that how powerful racism, systemic racism is in our society, and we have to be working every day to change that. And there's so many ways to do it. One of the ways is with this election. We have all got to get out and vote for candidates who are going to help us not inflame racial tensions, but are rather going to be people who try to bring us together, who try to really look the racial inequities in the face and deal with them. Yeah. And I think so the election is very closely related to what I think our greatest challenge is as a society and as a city of Durham, but as a community, but as a whole society, I really do.
Absolutely. So let me just follow up with one question about that. So there are tons of these organizations that are at least publicly saying they're addressing racial, social, health, and environmental injustices. But I mean, I am tech savvy. I'm a security expert. I know IT really, really well, but I am uncomfortable putting my name and my information out there to say I would like to serve on a coalition or I'd like to do this because I don't know if I trust it. I don't know if it's legitimate, right? Because people take your information and manage it, so that it comes out to say something you didn't intend to. So with algorithms and all the automation that's out there, does the city of Durham specifically have a coalition that is looking at the issues in terms of these injustices that we all face? And I mean, not just about race, but health, environmental, is there a coalition like that in Durham that we could connect to and volunteer if needed?
So we just had the report of our racial equity task force, and they looked across all the things that you just said. They looked at criminal justice reform. They looked at health justice reform. They looked at education justice. They looked at environmental justice. They looked at all through the lens of racial equity. They really looked across the spectrum of issues and have given us a really powerful report and a challenge that we take action as a city and as a community on a lot of these things. Some of them are city government things. Some of them are community things, school issues, lots of different people have to act. And so I think that they've really given us a good path forward. I think that, as you say, there are a lot of different, the city doesn't have any particular organizations to recommend, but I think there's so many organizations that really are doing good work on this, people's churches. There are a lot of churches that are doing really good work around the racial justice issues. All kinds of volunteer organizations that everything from, the African American sororities to, the political action organizations. I mean, it just sort of, I think for people, it depends on who you're comfortable with. Because there's so many ways to enter the work of racial justice. And I think, the thing I try to tell people is find the group you're comfortable with that's doing the work that you like. And I think that'll be the best way to contribute.
Well, that's very, very helpful. Thank you so much for this. And as always, if I can help, if you need me to put some information in my neighborhood or on my social media, Amber sent me something the other day. I posted that. It got like a tremendous number of people who liked it or volunteered for it. So if there's anything I can do, I'm always right here. Phone call away.
Thank you, Rochelle. I think the main thing is the thing you asked about today is the most important thing right now.
Yeah.
Getting people out, letting them know that they can request their absentee ballot right now, their mail-in ballot, and that on October 15th, we have early voting beginning, and that people need to get out and vote. That is, we've got to do that. We have to do it.
Absolutely. Well, I will make sure I'll put all of that in our posts from today. I will send you the link to see if I can upload it. And once you say yes, I'll put all or whatever you want.
You don't need to. I trust you, Rochelle. Go for it.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to put in the youcanvote.org. I'm going to put the dates to start and stop for early voting. And then I'm also going to see if I can dig in that site and find to get voter education, put all that out there so it's there. And I hope after the election, because I'm sure you're overwhelmed right now, we can come back and chat again about what we did right and what we did wrong and what we do going forward. So thank you so much.
We'll do that after the election. Thank you, Rochelle. Take care.
You do the same.
Well, okay.
You too. Bye.
Bye.